We have started to do the reforms at the beginning of the years 2000, the so-called Agenda 2000 reforms. This was pretty painful, and it was also partly self-destroying for some political parties, but it was necessary for the country to do. And I think today we can be proud of it. It is an effort that now pays fruits. We have a record high of employment in Germany, but it were the trade unions who contributed, the employers contributed, and a number of governments belonging to different political parties also contributed. So it's a joint effort over a time horizon of more than 10 years.
After the 2005 reforms for the lost elections, being brave enough to face such a reform means that a politician needs to be brave enough to risk the elections.
I mean, this is for me how you demonstrate real leadership. I mean, it's not that you look at the polls, say, oh, the people don't like it because it's so complicated and this means I don't do it. This is not leadership for me. Leadership is when you look, what are the problems of your country? Then you go through the different options you have, you weigh them with pros and cons, you go out publicly and explain the pros and cons and where you want to do, and then you fight for your goal and what is right for your country to do. This is leadership.
What sacrifice Italian people must be prepared to do facing such a labor reform?
I would not only
one we are pretending to.
I would not only say that are sacrifices, it also creates chances. I try to give you an example. The Italian labor market, as far as I understood it, and I've lived here for 2 years, but many years ago, is segmented. You have a so-called dual labor market. If you are an insider, part of the formal labor market, you are highly protected, you have good social security, you cannot be sacked every single day. This is all more or less okay. The point is, if you are an outsider, a young person that enters the labor market after school, after education, it's extremely hard to join the formal labor market. So one step necessary to deal, especially with the unacceptably high youth unemployment, is to make it easier for the so-called outsiders, mostly young people, to enter the formal labor market. So this means to strike a new balance between flexibility on one side and security on the other side. You need both in a modern labor market.
What does labor flexibility mean in Germany?
Flexibility not defined in an Anglo-Saxon sense of hiring and firing people, but in a sense that we try to keep the number of employed people constant, even in an economic crisis like 2009, but that the number of hours worked through a number of labor market instruments can vary with the business cycle. So it's not the people that is sacked or hired again, they stay in the company, but that simply the number of hours worked due to, for example, short-time work can vary. This is the model of, let's say, short-term work in Germany, where in an extreme case, the number of hours worked could be reduced even to 0 for a very limited period, but you get 60% of the pay in this time, but you stay in your job. You can be retrained in the time where you are not working, for example.
How long a temporary contract can last in Germany?
It can last for 2 years. It can be renewed 2 times without giving a reason. That's the point.
After that, do I get the right of a stable contract or not?
It is not a right that you can stay, but if the company decides to keep you, you have an unlimited contract, or they decided not to keep you. There's always a chance and a risk at that moment.
Practically, how do you help a 45 euros mini job worker to survive? 450 euros.
The mini jobs are part of our flexible labor market. It's often the entry for some people into the formal labor market after they had been out of work for quite some time, either involuntarily or voluntarily because they have, for example, raised a child. So mini jobs are often the entry to a better job. The whole situation, this goes for every citizen, is means tested. So if you don't earn enough with a mini job or by whatever job else to earn a standard of living that covers the existence minimum, you get additional pay by the state. This is true for every citizen in Germany.
You help everyone to reach the dignity of everyday life.
Yes, this is given by our constitution.
Where did you take the money for social safety nets, and how much did it cost in terms of GDP?
In terms of GDP, I must confess I don't know. What we do, for example, in the labor field, we have an unemployment insurance. There we have a contribution of 3% currently from the wages, and this is paid half by the employers, half by the entrepreneur. This is our standard social security system. This also works in pensions or in healthcare, for example. So this unemployment insurance feds into a federal agency, is one agency for the whole country, but they have 1,000 offices across the country, but it's one unified system. It's not with the regions. And there you have active labor market policy financed out of it, like the training we just talked about, and what we call passive labor market policy. These are the unemployment benefits received when you're unemployed.
The German reform started a lot of years ago with other reforms that are linked. And would it be possible for you to get this reform and its results without the decentralization of the negotiation between unions and the business class?
We have collective wage bargaining agreements at the sector level, for example, in the chemical industry or the construction sector or whatsoever. So you have collective wage bargaining agreements at the sector, but then within these contracts you have opening clauses that you can deal with specific situation, economic difficult situation at the factory level.
To get unemployed people back to work means today, with the crisis, that all workers should be ready to earn less money.
No, this is not necessarily the case. It should mean, now to move on a broader sense, if we are able, through structural reforms, product markets, service markets as well, if we manage to raise our productivity, this is the key economic success factor in advanced economies. To raise the productivity, and then the pay can increase in line with productivity. This is the best way forward. This is nothing that, for example, can be done by monetary policy. Productivity growth comes from reforms very much on the micro level, on the factory level, what you're doing on the production line. So it's hard day-to-day work. It's not just helping that the central bank cuts interest rates.
Our economy minister Paduan said that we need a growth compact, and Mario Draghi 1 month ago said that Europe needs to have a more active role in structural reforms. Do you agree with it? How do we have to read Mario Draghi's words?
You need an economic policy in a broad sense that has to work together in order to produce successful outcomes. You need monetary policy within its mandate to assure price stability. You need a sustainable fiscal policy, and then you need the whole range of structural reforms to boost your competitiveness. This includes significant labor market reforms. You need this all together. If you just focus on one, let's say monetary policy, you will never create sustainable growth and good jobs. You need it all. This means the European Central Bank cannot solve the problem of its own. You need the cooperation at the European level, and this trickles down to the level of member states in all three areas: monetary, fiscal and structural. You're welcome. Thanks a lot.